Hi, we're now going to talk about translators and look at the three examples of translators you've got to know about for A-level. So before we do that, we've got to kind of understand the purpose of a translator, and we've got different kind of levels of programming language. At the bottom, so to speak, we've got machine code. Now, machine code is what the CPU is actually executing. It's pure binary, and that's ultimately what the computer is using. We've also got assembly code. We'll talk more about assembly code in upcoming videos in the paper one playlist. You've got to learn a little bit of assembly code. This is slightly detached from machine code, but is a little bit easier to understand for a human. But both assembly code and machine code are referred to as low-level programming languages. And these contrast with high-level languages, which are the languages you would have heard of. Arguably, they sit on a spectrum where some are a little bit more abstracted than others, but these are all categorized as high-level. And in our upcoming video, we'll talk about pros and cons of this as a paradigm. But ultimately, we need to translate everything to machine code. We can write code in Python or Java or assembly. That's all fine. But ultimately, the computer doesn't execute Java or Python or assembly. It only executes machine code. That's where translators come in. A translator is a program. It's a utility that converts code from one language into equivalent code in another language. And all three translators we're looking at today go from one language into machine code. Now, the first one is an assembler. Assemblers are a translator which go from assembly code to machine code. Now, as we'll talk a bit more about in future videos, assembly code has what we describe as a one-to-one relationship with machine code. In my little spectrum diagram, I put assembly code right next to machine code because they're pretty similar. Really, assembly code is a slightly gentler version of machine code, but they are very similar to each other. And what an assembler does is it simply uses the processor's instruction set to convert the instructions in assembly code to the machine code equivalent. So it will effectively have a table, a bit like this, but with many, many more lines to it, which substitute the assembly code instruction, like add, sub, LDA, into the machine code equivalent. And really, it's just substituting these words with the equivalent binary. So if it had a line of assembly code like add 42, it looks up what add is in the table and then also would convert the number into binary. And that's all the assembler is really doing. It would do the same with future lines of code, where it's putting it into the equivalent machine code so the CPU is able to actually execute it. So assemblers go from assembly code to machine code. The other two types of translator in this video go from high-level code, such as in Python or Java or C++, into machine code. Now, these translators have got more work to do because high-level code is much more detached from machine code than assembly code is. An interpreter is our first main type of translator. The way an interpreter works is it translates one line at a time into machine code, then immediately executes it before repeating with the next lines of code. So an interpreter works one line at a time. It will take some high-level code, like this code here in pseudocode, but it could be Python code or similar. This will go into an interpreter. The interpreter will look at one line at a time only. The interpreter will convert this into binary. That's a little bit of a harder job than the assembler had. It's got a bit more work to do to convert to the machine code equivalent. But once it's in binary, it will then immediately send it to the CPU and run it. And this gets repeated as we go through each line of this program. Each line will have a different machine code equivalent, but ultimately it gets run immediately by the CPU. Once my program finishes, if I want to run it again, I have to go right back to the start and reinterpret it. The interpreter will just do its same job again in the future, which is one of the downsides of an interpreter, that the binary code it produced isn't really saved anywhere. It's just done on the fly and we have to repeat it each time. If we did encounter an error in this process, then the translation would stop immediately because it would try and run it and then have an issue and have to stop. And another important property of an interpreter is if we want a user to run our program using an interpreter, they need both the source code and the interpreter to make this work. So if I wanted to give my lovely program to a user, I've got to send them both my code and also the interpreter for them to be able to run it. And that means if I want to use an interpreter, I'm effectively making my code open source because I can't avoid sending my source code to the user. Whereas if I want to have the option of making it closed source, I really need to use a compiler, because a compiler does allow me to kind of hide my source code from the user. So compiler also goes from a high-level language to machine code. Some programming languages give you the choice between using an interpreter and a compiler, but most languages are either interpreted or compiled. Python is interpreted. A language like Java or C++ is compiled. The way a compiler works is different. A compiler doesn't work one line at a time. A compiler will scan through the entirety of your code and then translate it all into machine code. And there's a lot more to talk about that. We'll cover that in the next video. We'll look at the 4 distinct stages of compilation. But we have our code. Compiler will kind of look at the whole code as a whole and produce a single block of machine code. And that will get saved as an executable program, which is a file that the CPU is able to execute. So if I want my program to run, I double click this executable file and run it. It goes to the CPU and the program will run. And you recognize that from most programs. And like I said, if you want programs to be closed source, we have to use a compiler, because that is just a binary file. It doesn't show us the source code. I mentioned a few minutes ago that interpreters will stop when they encounter an error, because it will try and run the code and it won't work. Because a compiler is looking at the entirety of your program, we only really discover errors after the compiler's gone through the whole code, which on a 4-line program like I've got here, that makes no difference really. In a massive program, that is a bit annoying because you only hear about the error right at the end. You could spend 10 minutes compiling it only to be told there's an error on line 2, whereas an interpreter would have discovered that a lot quicker. Which leads us into evaluating these 2 translators, because you do sometimes have a choice between a compiler and an interpreter, and certainly you've got a choice between using a compiled language or a interpreted language. So the benefits of compilers are that we are able to keep it closed source, because all the user needs is the executable. They don't need the source code to run the program. I'm able to just give my user a .exe file, and that's enough for them to be able to run it. I'm still able to publish it as open source if I voluntarily give them the code, but I don't need to. Another benefit is typically compiled code runs faster than interpreted code, and that's partly due to the fact that we have a stage of compilation called optimization, which we'll cover in the next video, that allows us to try and make it run faster and also sometimes use less memory space. Now, executable files are written in machine code. Machine code is specific to one family of CPUs or one design of CPUs. A RISC CPU has got a whole different machine code to a CISC CPU, and different manufacturers have got different machine codes as well. That executable file is in a machine code, but that's one type of CPU it's been written for, and that means they are not portable. I can't take a .exe file and run it on every computer. And this is why there'll be a different executable file for Windows and a different one for Mac and a different one for different CPUs, because that is not universally recognized. That machine code only works on the CPU it was designed for. I've mentioned the errors before and how they can be a little bit annoying. They're only reported right at the end of the process, which makes debugging more time consuming because you're waiting a lot of time for it to finish its work before getting told you've got a few syntax errors. Those 2 drawbacks are really the benefits of interpreters. Interpreters do allow us to make a portable program because the interpreter will ensure the correct code gets translated. And that's because the interpreter is translating the code every time it runs. Therefore, if you move computers, it will just translate to the correct machine code of that particular computer. And because we are running the code straight after translation, errors get reported as soon as they are encountered. That makes debugging and development of programs a little bit less frustrating. But the drawbacks are kind of the opposites of the benefits of compilers. The programs run more slowly comparatively, and we have to retranslate it every time it's run, which takes up time and feels a little bit wasteful. If we want to use an interpreter, we're really forcing our code to be open source because users require both the source code and the interpreter to run it. So I'm restricting my options if I'm using an interpreter.